Hey, Jake Hints Custom Knives. Today is part 2 of the Chevron lasered Damascus forge press dies. Today I'm going to attempt to fix these. If you remember watching part 1 of this series, I screwed up in the heat treat and I caused these things to crack massively after I heat treated them. Just a dumb, impatient mistake of myself. I didn't let them cool down enough, and I chucked them in some water to try and cool them off all the way, and that was really, really dumb. So what I'm going to try and do is weld these back together. The cracks on the actual surfaces here, I'm not going to weld these because I don't want to ruin the pattern, but I am going to go ahead and TIG weld the backs of these to try and just add some structural rigidity back into these. These actually are going to go on like some 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch plate steel before they actually go into the press. So hopefully with me just kind of welding this up a bit and then welding them to those plates, there'll be at least a good proof of concept. They might not last as long as they normally would, but we're going to give it a try. This is D2 steel, so it is hardened tool steel. It should hold up pretty well. This stuff's actually made for this kind of thing, so let's go weld it up and hopefully it works.
So I'm going to fire up the TIG welder. I want to do this with TIG just to keep everything more clean. Now, I've been welding for years, but I have never used a TIG welder. In fact, you're about to see my first tries at using a TIG welder. I've had this thing for a while, but I've never pulled it out and used it. Purposely not using any filler on the bottom, mainly because I don't want to have to grind anything down, and I don't want the bottom to be uneven on this. I want these to sit flush when they get welded to the plate that goes on the forge press. So I don't want to change, how parallel they are with the tops where the pattern is. I'm just doing some little kind of tack welds here so that as I go along the crack while I'm welding fully, it's not going to kind of warp as it goes. I did end up having some issues with it kind of re-cracking. I'm thinking maybe I could have used a little more amperage to get a little more penetration. I mean, this is 1 inch thick. I didn't expect this to give me massive penetration at all on this D2, but really I'm just wanting this thing to kind of hold together better and not crack more, and kind of prevent more cracking. So I think this works out, and that's where you see where I decided to dip my tungsten into the pool and look stupid. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and weld up the sides. Now this is where I wish I would have used some filler, but I wanted to get this done and I didn't have any, so I decided, screw it, we're just going to go with it. Still worked out fine. I do have to say, this being my first time using a TIG welder, I really do enjoy the process. It's so much cleaner than MIG welding, and most of the time I'm using flux core because basically I'm just sticking stuff together. I rarely do anything that's really structural or important. It's just kind of holding stuff. So I pretty much treat welding as metal glue in most cases, but this is a lot of fun. I definitely need to practice a lot more, get some filler rod, but that's for the future. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the results here. You can see I am no master welder, but I think this is going to work. It's going to hold together, and it's certainly going to serve my purposes. So I'm going to go over to the kiln, and I'm going to put these through a couple of really long tempering cycles. I'm going to temper this at 600 degrees. D2, between 600 and 1,000, you can get varying degrees of increased durability and strength. They get really, really tough. So that's actually a good spot for kind of the press application like I'm using it. I usually do about 450 when I'm using it for knives, and that works out pretty good for me. So I'm going to leave it in there for 3-4 hours, and I'm going to do that a couple times.
All right, so next steps on this one. I've already got it sent off to my Damascus guy. It's going over to Paxton at 50/50 Forge. Been working with him for a long time. Makes 99% of all my Damascus. So he's going to take these dies and make me a few billets so we can kind of experiment with how this worked out. Hopefully the fix worked and they're going to hold up. I think it should work fine, at least for some test passes to kind of play it out, see if it's deep enough to get the pattern we want, and we'll go from there. So next part of this is going to be part 3. Paxton's going to get me some video of him putting this through the paces. We're going to get some billets back, and then we'll make something with it and see how our pattern looked out. So stick with me for part 3, and we'll see you there.